Russia politics. Governance. According to the Constitution of Russia, the country is a federation and semi-presidential republic, wherein the president is the head of state and the prime minister is the head of government. The Russian Federation is fundamentally structured as a multi-party representative democracy, with the federal government composed of three branches. Legislative, the bicameral Federal Assembly of Russia, made up of the 450-member State Duma and the 170-member Federation Council, adopts federal law, declares war, approves treaties, has the power of the purse and the power of impeachment of the president. Executive, the president is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, can veto legislative bills before they become law, and appoints the government of Russia, cabinet, and other officers, who administer and enforce federal laws and policies. Judiciary, the Constitutional Court, Supreme Court and lower federal courts, whose judges are appointed by the Federation Council on the recommendation of the President, interpret laws and can overturn laws they deem unconstitutional. The President is elected by popular vote for a 6-year term, eligible for a second term, but not for a third consecutive term. Ministries of the government are composed of the Premier and his deputies, ministers, and selected other individuals. All are appointed by the President on the recommendation of the Prime Minister, whereas the appointment of the latter requires the consent of the State Duma. Leading political parties in Russia include United Russia, the Communist Party, the Liberal Democratic Party, and Just Russia. In 2017, Russia was ranked as 135th of 167 countries in the Democracy Index, compiled by the Economist Intelligence Unit, while the World Justice Project, as of 2014, ranked Russia 80th of 99 countries surveyed in terms of rule of law. Foreign relations. The Russian Federation is recognized in international law as a successor state of the former Soviet Union. Russia continues to implement the international commitments of the USSR, and has assumed the USSR's permanent seat in the UN Security Council, membership in other international organizations, the rights and obligations under international treaties, and property and debts. Russia has a multifaceted foreign policy. As of 2009, it maintains diplomatic relations with 191 countries and has 144 embassies. The foreign policy is determined by the President and implemented by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia. As the successor to a former superpower, Russia's geopolitical status has often been debated, particularly in relation to unipolar and multipolar views on the global political system. While Russia is commonly accepted to be a great power, in recent years it has been characterized by a number of world leaders, scholars, commentators and politicians as a currently reinstating or potential superpower. Russia is one of 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council. The country participates in the Quartet on the Middle East and the Six-Party Talks with North Korea. Russia is a member of the Council of Europe, US, and APEC. Russia usually takes a leading role in regional organizations such as the CIS, Eurasic, CSTO, and the SCO. Russia became the 39th member state of the Council of Europe in 1996. In 1998, Russia ratified the European Convention on Human Rights. The legal basis for EU relations with Russia is the Partnership and Cooperation Agreement, which came into force in 1997. The agreement recalls the parties' shared respect for democracy and human rights, political and economic freedom and commitment to international peace and security. In May 2003, the EU and Russia agreed to reinforce their cooperation on the basis of common values and shared interests. Former President Vladimir Putin had advocated a strategic partnership with close integration in various dimensions including establishment of EU-Russia common spaces. From the dissolution of the Soviet Union, Russia has initially developed a friendlier relationship with the United States and NATO. However, today, the trilateral relationship has significantly deteriorated due to several issues and conflicts between Russia and the Western countries. The NATO-Russia Council was established in 2002 to allow the United States, Russia and the 27 allies in NATO to work together as equal partners to pursue opportunities for joint collaboration. Russia maintains strong and positive relations with other SCO and BRICS countries. In recent years, the country has significantly strengthened bilateral ties with the People's Republic of China by signing the Treaty of Friendship as well as building the Trans-Siberian oil pipeline and gas pipeline from Siberia to China, and has since formed a special relationship with China. India is the largest customer of Russian military equipment, and the two countries share extensive defense and strategic relations. An important aspect of Russia's relations with the West is the criticism of Russia's political system and human rights management, including LGBT rights, media freedom, and reports about killed journalists, by Western governments, the mass media, and the leading democracy and human rights watchdogs. In particular, such organizations as Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch consider Russia to have not enough democratic attributes and to allow few political rights and civil liberties to its citizens. Freedom House, an international organization funded by the United States, ranks Russia as not free, citing carefully engineered elections and absence of debate. Russian authorities dismiss these claims and especially criticize Freedom House. The Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has called the 2006 Freedom in the World report prefabricated, stating that the human rights issues have been turned into a political weapon, in particular by the United States. The ministry also claims that such organizations as Freedom House and Human Rights Watch use the same scheme of voluntary extrapolation of isolated facts that of course can be found in any country into dominant tendencies. Military. The Russian military is divided into the ground forces, navy, and air force. There are also three independent arms of service: strategic missile troops, aerospace defense forces, and the airborne troops. As of 2017, the military comprised over 1 million active duty personnel, the fifth largest in the world. Additionally, there are over 2.5 million reservists, with a total number of reserve troops possibly being as high as 20 million. It is mandatory for all male citizens aged 18 to 27 to be drafted for a year of service in armed forces. Russia has the largest stockpile of nuclear weapons in the world, the second largest fleet of ballistic missile submarines, and the only modern strategic bomber force outside the United States. Russia's tank force is the largest in the world, while its surface navy and air force are among the largest. The country has a large and fully indigenous arms industry, producing most of its own military equipment with only a few types of weapons imported. It has been one of the world's top supplier of arms since 2001, accounting for around 30% of worldwide weapons sales and exporting weapons to about 80 countries. The Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, SIPRI, found that Russia was the second biggest exporter of arms in 2010-14, increasing their exports by 37% from the period 2005 to 2009. In 2010-14, Russia delivered weapons to 56 states and to rebel forces in eastern Ukraine. The Russian government's official 2014 military budget is about 2.49 trillion rubles, approximately $69.3 billion, the third largest in the world behind the US and China. The official budget is set to rise to 3.03 trillion rubles, approximately $83.7 billion in 2015. And 3.36 trillion rubles, approximately $93.9 billion in 2016. However, unofficial estimates put the budget significantly higher. For example, the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, SIPRI, 2013 military expenditure database estimated Russia's military expenditure in 2012 at $90.749 billion. This estimate is an increase of more than $18 billion on SIPRI's estimate of the Russian military budget for 2011, $71.9 billion. As of 2014, Russia's military budget is higher than any other European nation. Political divisions. Federal subjects. According to the Constitution, the country comprises 85 federal subjects, including the disputed Republic of Crimea and federal city of Sevastopol. In 1993, when the Constitution was adopted, there were 89 federal subjects listed, but later some of them were merged. These subjects have equal representation, 2 delegates each, in the Federation Council. However, they differ in the degree of autonomy they enjoy. 46 oblasts, provinces, most common type of federal subjects, with locally elected governor and legislature. 22 republics, nominally autonomous, each is tasked with drafting its own constitution, direct elected head of republic or a similar post, and parliament. Republics are allowed to establish their own official language alongside Russian but are represented by the federal government in international affairs. Republics are meant to be home to specific ethnic minorities. 9 Krays, territories, essentially the same as oblasts. The territory designation is historic, originally given to frontier regions and later also to the administrative divisions that comprised autonomous okrugs or autonomous oblasts. 4 Autonomous okrugs, autonomous districts, originally autonomous entities within oblasts and krays created for ethnic minorities. Their status was elevated to that of federal subjects in the 1990s. With the exception of Chukotka Autonomous Okrug, all autonomous okrugs are still administratively subordinated to a krai or an oblast of which they are a part. 1 Autonomous Oblast, the Jewish Autonomous Oblast. Historically, autonomous oblasts were administrative units subordinated to krays. In 1990, all of them except for the Jewish were elevated in status to that of a republic. 3 Federal cities, Moscow, St. Petersburg, and Sevastopol, major cities that function as separate regions. Federal districts. Federal subjects are grouped into 8 federal districts, each administered by an envoy appointed by the President of Russia. Unlike the federal subjects, the federal districts are not a subnational level of government, but are a level of administration of the federal government. Federal districts' envoys serve as liaisons between the federal subjects and the federal government and are primarily responsible for overseeing the compliance of the federal subjects with the federal laws.